get into it. Let's start with this. A new jobs report is out, and it is painting a troubling picture of the U.S. economy. For the first time in nearly 2 years, private companies, they actually cut jobs, signaling a slowdown, just as the federal government shuts down, adding more uncertainty. Let's look at these numbers here. Private sector employers, they shed 32,000 jobs in September. That is the steepest monthly drop since 2023. And that follows a small decline in August of 3,000 jobs lost after it was first reported as a gain of 54,000 jobs. Now, despite these job losses, wages, they climbed 4.5% over the past year, showing workers are still seeing steady pay growth. So while there are already signs of a slowdown, the timing couldn't be worse here. With the federal shutdown underway, hundreds of thousands of workers, they are facing furloughs and ripple effects. They could spread across the private sector. So with that, we want to bring in Emory finance professor Tom Smith to talk about what this means for the nation's job market going forward. Tom, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with this, a little riddle for you. In one word right now, the U.S. economy is what?
The U.S. economy is uncertain.
Okay.
So the reason I think that so many companies shed jobs, and I'm sure you've heard other reports that newly minted undergraduates are having a very difficult time finding employment. And so I think the reason for this is that there's so much uncertainty. A lot of it is revolving around the implementation of tariffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're hearing that even in our reporting. Tom, let me ask you this. What's your biggest takeaway from this surprising loss of 32,000 jobs in September?
I think that a lot of companies are streamlining, trying to identify where they might have redundancies, trying to identify where there might be cost savings. Remember that the tariffs are not only increasing costs for a lot of companies, but they're raising the level of uncertainty. So these companies aren't sure how they can go about and plan, which means that they're trying to cut, trying to reduce some overhead and reduce expenses now in anticipation of even higher costs moving forward.
Yeah, giving to that uncertainty. Now, a big question, do you see this as a temporary dip, or is this the first sign of something even bigger in the labor market?
Well, I think that there is something even bigger happening. We just saw recently the Fed cut their target interest rates by 25 basis points, the first cut we've had in quite a while. The Fed's not going to cut interest rates just because, even though there's some inflationary pressures, the Fed is cutting interest rates because they're seeing a longer-term trend of some kind of a depression in the market. And I think that this cut in employment is consistent with what the Fed is seeing. So I think it's a longer-term trend, and I think the economy might be heading for a recession. But I don't want to say it is for sure yet, because that scares a lot of people.
Absolutely. What's the best case scenario if this shutdown does end quickly, and what is the worst case if it drags on?
So the best case scenario is that cooler heads prevail. A bunch of politicians decide that it's not a really good idea to be politicking, especially when it comes to people's paychecks and their jobs. So cooler heads prevail. That's best case, that this, next week they come to a resolution. Worst case is that everybody digs in their heels, so to speak, and they decide to drag this out for a long time. We have heard, and I think you've been reporting as well, that the administration, the White House administration, is saying, okay, well, I think we're going to have to start firing people, not just furloughing them. And I think that's a really bad case scenario. We do not want that to happen.
I think a lot of people would agree that would be one of the worst case scenarios. Speaking of those workers, we know that up to 750,000 federal workers are furloughed. How quickly could we see those ripple effects hit the private sector?
So I suspect that a lot of those people who are going to be furloughed, who would be getting paychecks in the next week or so, they're going to say that the ripple effect is happening right now. These are people who have real jobs, and they have real houses, and they have mortgage payments and car payments, and got to take their daughters to soccer practice and what have you. These are real people. they're not going to get paid. It's going to impact the way that they live. It's going to impact the money flowing into communities. And so it's going to impact them immediately. We don't have to wait very long to see that happen.
And a lot of people already living paycheck to paycheck. It takes me back to 2018 to 2019 when we saw even some TSA workers calling out sick because they said, hey, I don't have gas money. I don't have childcare. I cannot work for free, even though, of course, they were getting back pay. But at the moment, it was hard for them to do that.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Right? Remember that these furloughed workers, especially for TSA, I mean, if you're going to be traveling and you've got friends or family who's traveling, of course you want the TSA workers to be, screening that luggage, making sure that there's nothing that's going to happen, to our aviation system. And these people then are going to be working without a paycheck. As you also mentioned, which is a great point, I think the average family has less than or just around $500 in savings. So a huge number of people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Okay.
And if you're not getting your paycheck, how are you going to pay the rent? How are you going to pay the car bill? How are you even going to put gas in your car, as you just mentioned?
Yeah, a lot of people even turning to credit cards if they can get one. That's a whole nother story. Tom Smith, thank you so much for bringing your insight and perspective. We truly appreciate it.